confused about what major should I take.
Okay, so which topics are you most interested in?
I think I'm interested in programming and business.
Okay, I think the major that suits you the best is either MICT or business information.
Okay, what's MIST and what is business information system?
You should check this video out in order to get all the information in it.
What is MICT? MICT is Management of Information and Communication Technology. In this major, you have to take MOIS 2101. MOIS is Management of Information System People. The IT manager's objective is to provide everyone with IT solution in order to achieve their goals. MOIS has 6 components, which are telecommunication, hardware, software, procedures, security, and people. The first IT component is telecommunication, which is basically the transmission of information over a huge distance for communication. Telecommunication has 2 subcomponents called LAN and the WAN. The LAN stands for Local Area Network. From its name, it's obvious that the LAN is used for local connections between different PCs. It connects different computers to each other by using switches. A switch can have as many ports as 64. However, it is more expensive, but all ports are LAN because switches do not have WAN ports. A switch has 2 types of network connectivity, which are wired or wireless, and the switch can also be both at the same time. The wired switches uses either copper cable or fiber optic cable to connect PCs. However, each one has its own advantages and disadvantages. The copper cable are cheaper, connect very small distance, function with electricity, therefore more exposed to errors. On the other hand, fiber optic cable are very expensive, connect huge distance through submarine cables, function with light, therefore errors are minimal. In contrast, the WAN is responsible for wide area network to connect computers and the main network center. In our case, we are going to talk about Telecom Egypt. WAN connection is done through routers, which have only 2 ports, LAN and WAN. In the case of only one computer, we do not need a switch. We just need a router, where we connect the computer to LAN port in the router and then connect the computer to Telecom Egypt through the WAN port. In the case of more than one computer, we need switch to connect all PCs through LAN port and then connect the switch to the router and the router to Telecom Egypt through the WAN port. However, the newest addition is only one device, which is a wired switch, a wired router, and a wireless switch, all in one. It is called ADSL. The WAN connections between the router and Telecom Egypt occurs through our home's telephone cable. WAN can also be wired or wireless. The wired WAN uses fiber cable to connect router to Telecom Egypt, and the wireless WAN uses WiMAX for connection through antennas. The WiMAX is way more expensive than the fiber cable, but fiber cable are faster and more reliable because the WiMAX is affected by dust and wind, so it is used as a backup. Also, the LAN can be wired or wireless. The wired LAN uses fiber or optic cable. We call the wireless LAN a Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is useful for portability reasons and can be used as a backup for copper cable, and the WiMAX can be used as a backup for the fiber cable. However, how many switches to use or what type of cable to use depends on each situation. The second IT component is hardware, which are the physical or tangible elements that make up the computer system. The main hardware components of the computer are CPU, RAM, ROM, hard drive disk. The CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, which acts as the executive manager of the computer that receives order from the operating system. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, which is temporary memory that stores information through electricity, and they are deleted once you turn off the computer. An example is the buffers of videos or any software application. ROM stands for Read-Only Memory, which is a permanent memory that stores information through electricity that cannot be edited or rewritten. It is a read-only information. An example of ROM is the operating system. Every letter is stored as certain universal code, and this code transfers to binary of zeros and ones. Unlike RAM and ROM, the hard drive disk is a memory that stores information through magnetic waves, which are way slower than electricity. Also, there are 3 types of computer system, which are microcomputer, mini-computer, and the mainframe computer. Examples of the microcomputers from smallest to largest are handheld computer, tablets, laptops, and desktops. Microcomputers have only one CPU. However, the mini-computers have from 2 to 100 CPUs or processors, and the mainframe computers have from 101 to 1000 CPUs. There is also the supercomputer, which is the world's largest and fastest. However, it is not often used. Additionally, the first generation of computer technology is the vacuum tubes, which are big vacuum electric circuits. Second generation is transistors, which are smaller circuits. And finally, the third generation is integrated circuits, which are very small circuits as the size of the handheld computers. The hardware components consist of two subcomponents, which are clients and servers. The servers are the providers of resources or service, and the clients are the service requesters. For the clients, a microcomputer is available for every user because one user would only need one CPU, and switches connect all computers to the router and the router connect to Telecom Egypt. However, for the servers, it can be a mini computer, a microcomputer, or mainframe computer. It depends on the transactions per minute that it will receive from the clients. So, the number of CPUs are calculated using the benchmark, which is 32 CPUs or processors can execute 2 million transactions per minute and cost 12 million Egyptian pounds. A server in general has only one port of network, but only for backup reasons 2 ports can be used. In order to calculate the bandwidth of the wired connection between Telecom Egypt and the servers, we sum the megabytes per second that the client uses. The third IT component is software. It is divided into 3 subcomponents, which are operating software, database, and application software. The operating software is a software which manages hardware like CPU and printers. It also manages users who are competing for a source, like those who want to print. Printer performs tasks on the basis of first come first serve until the task is finished. Users stand in a queue waiting for their turn to print. As for a CPU, tasks are performed on the basis of a specific kind of algorithm called round robin. This algorithm allows tasks to occur by first come first serve basis. For example, it starts a task like Skype, then starts another task like YouTube, and when you start Skype again, it will show you the last status that you were left at. It's also important to mention that the computer makes you think that all tasks are working at the same time, due to the great number of transactions, about 1,000 transactions, that take place in 1 second. So each task takes only microsecond to take place. The operating software has a timely or real-time characteristic, where it manages the software accordingly, depending on a hard real-time or soft real-time application. The hard real-time is when there is a loss of life, like the airplane. If the doors of the wheels did not open when the airplane is landing, there will be a loss of life. Unlike the soft real-time, like Skype, if the sound was faster than the pictures, there won't be a loss of life. Based on these 2 types of real-time, the CPU chooses either round-robin or priority algorithm. For instance, in a situation where a loss of life is a factor, the CPU would have to use priority algorithm, where it briefly means that the CPU would prioritize a certain task over the other. Briefly, CPU would swap tasks to perform the prioritized task. This concept is necessary in situations where loss of life is a possibility. And most importantly, if we didn't identify whether this application is hard or soft real-time, there will be a high risk of loss of life. If the task is not performed and finished during its allowed time slice, like in case of Challenger disaster where it exploded because CPU couldn't identify whether it is a hard or soft real-time. There are 3 main features of the operating system, which are single task and multitasking. The single tasking does not exist anymore. Single processors or multiple processors. The single processors is only one CPU, and the multiprocessors are more than one CPU. Single user and multi-user. Single user like iOS or Microsoft, and the multi-user like Banner or Windows. These features are used to distinguish between client and server, different architectures, where client is usually a microcomputer with single processor, single user, and multitasking characteristics, whereas the server is a multi-user, multitasking, and single or multi-processors, depending on the number of users and the number of transactions performed by the specific user. Also, it is important to distinguish between the multiprocessors and the multiprocesses to avoid confusion. The multiprocessors means multi-CPUs and the multiprocesses means multitasking. It's additionally important to shed a light on bad resource utilization and fairly utilizing resources. These are very important concepts that highlights disorganization that occurs in the distribution of tasks among several computers, leading to a lot of time wasted. Consider the process of checking in an airport in different counters as an example of bad resource utilization. Occurs when some of the tasks of checking in are concentrated into one counter instead of being distributed fairly among all counters. When tasks aren't distributed fairly and one task takes longer than the other, customers checking in move from the slowly moving queue to the shortest one, causing the shortest queue to be the longer one. So, fairly utilizing the resources solve this problem by applying round robin, where each task is only allowed a specific time slice. And when the time is over, the counter will move on to the next task, smoothing out the checking in process, causing it to be more organized and faster. The second subcomponent of the software is database. It is a system of organized facts. However, it is important to know the difference between database and relation database management system. Relation database management system is a system through which you can access information, edit, search, make calculation like the Excel, and allows you to make relation between tables and different information in the database. Without a relational feature, you will be redundant in empty fields in the database. The system includes Microsoft Access, Microsoft SQL, Oracle, and IBM. Another important concept of database software is record locking. It basically protects a variable from having multiple users registering for the same constant at the same time, and allows the registering process to run smoothly. Another example, when you open a Word document 2 times, where the second document would say read only, which means that you cannot change or save anything on it. This case is because of record locking. Nowadays, the databases are usually found in servers due to the fact that databases require a huge hard disk compared to the client. And this takes us to the concept of cloud computing. Application software is a third subcomponent of software. It provides useful functions for users to be able to use it and perform the tasks beyond the running of the computer itself. Example of application software is social media application and database like Microsoft Office. Application software providers are companies that provide, operate, and maintain application software and allow it to work for the user to use. Cloud computing is basically a way of storing information, but instead of saving it on the client storage area, users save it on the personalized storage area on server, like Dropbox and Google Drive. There are 3 main software applications that are called cross-functional applications that are mainly needed in all departments in any company. They are enterprise resource planning, customer relation management, and supply chain management. The enterprise resource planning is a consolidated software that plans financial resources in all departments of the company. For example, as a payroll in human resources department. Also, the enterprise resource planning is important in stock control process. The customer relationship management is software used to gather the feedback of customers in order to enhance the customer service and the whole performance of the company. The supply chain management is a workflow or how materials, information, products, and finance are transferred from suppliers to wholesalers to retailers to customers. So basically it includes both ERP and CRM, as it requires management of financial resources as well as gathering of customer feedback. Also, there is a difference between the GPS and the GIS. The GPS is a global positioning system. It is a satellite-based navigation system that uses satellite to send data to GPS receivers, as well as uses the latitude and the longitudinal data to show you your current location, whereas the GIS, Geographical Information System, shows you the location of the place you want to go to. The navigator is a combination of both GPS and the GIS, which is a computerized map that shows how far you are from the destination and show you the way to reach it based on the data collected from the GPS and the GIS. There are three main emerging concepts: big data, cognitive computing, and the Internet of Things. Cognitive computing is a simulation of how the human brain thinks in a computerized model. It is used in numerous artificial intelligence applications, including robotics. Internet of Things are sensors that report all data and information while connecting to the Internet, like GPS, Apple Watch, Microsoft bands for measuring pressure or heartbeats. Finally, the big data is a software tool that transfers the huge amount of data coming from the real-time sensors. The characteristics of big data are summarized in the 4 V's, which are veracity, how certain you are of the data collected; velocity, how fast is data sent or received; variety, the different types of data, whether audio or video; and volume, magnitude, or the huge amount of streaming data collected that is considered unstructured and disorganized. Also, it is real time, where it depends on the output and the time that the output is made. For example, collecting data from health bands could report data to the cloud to send an alert that there is a high possibility that the person is going to have a heart attack. The fourth IT component is procedures. Procedures is steps or workflow that you have to follow in order to reach your destination. For example, the steps that you take in order to create an email. As a MOIS person, your role is to draw a flowchart or show some steps for people to follow, and you give this flowchart to the CS engineer to code. The SDLC, which is a System Development Lifecycle, describes a process for planning, creating, testing, and developing an information system. The first stage is analyze, then design, then implement, then test, then evaluate. Analyzing is to gather the requirement for the user and analyze the issue. Design is to design based on 6 components and subcomponents. Implementing is to implement the design and write the code. Testing is to test whether it is working as we expected or not. Evaluating is to check for updates and evaluate it. The procedures are important in the first and second stage, which are analyze and design. The fifth IT component is security. Security is a process of taking physical and software preventative methods to protect the underlying networking infrastructure from the unauthorized access. The intranet is a website within a network. It connects people within a network. So, the intranet is simply a website within a company's network that mostly only employees can access. A firewall is a device or set of devices designed to permit or deny network transmissions based upon a set of rules and is frequently used to protect networks from the unauthorized access. In the case of the AUC, only the people that have a username and password can access the intranet. The firewall allows the intranet to use the internet but does not allow the hackers of the internet to use the intranet. In a case where we have a lot of branches, then a lot of firewalls are needed. There are also some ways to detect the fraud or hackers. For example, the anomaly detection. It identifies the item, events, or observations which do not conform to unexpected pattern or other item in a dataset. Finally, the last component of the IT is people or HR, which basically means managing the workforce, and its main goal is to solve technical problems facing people and to provide everyone with accurate, timely, reliable, and cost-effective ICT tools for everyone to achieve their objectives. Organizational structure in a business shows that task allocation, coordination, and supervision in a company. There are 3 main types of organizational structure through which a business can operate: functional, product, and geographical organizational structure. Each one of these structures would have a manager at the top of the pyramid with subordinate assigned certain tasks where all employee and managers in all departments work together and report to each other to ensure a smooth flow of work. Such structure is called matrix organizational structure. Moreover, there is a quite important concept called the balanced scorecard, which is basically a business strategy and a management system used to align business activity to the mission and vision statement of the organization, improve internal and external communication, and monitor organization performance against strategic goals. Also, as managers align tasks and assign tasks to employees, it is important for them to measure the performance of their subordinates using key performance indicator. It helps to measure performance and allow organizations to measure its progress and how close it is to achieve its own goals. There are two types of the performance appraisal, which are classical appraiser and 360-degree appraisal. The classical appraiser is the assessment of performance of only the subordinate. However, its main drawback is the unfairness that could be caused due to the fact that only one manager appraises all subordinates. It's a one-man show. On the other hand, the 360-degree is the appraisal of all managers and the employees on all levels of the pyramid. Subordinates appraise their employee and the managers appraise the top managers as well. Even though the 30-degree provide an effective feedback on how to improve the performance of everybody in the pyramid, it requires time and effort consuming.